Well, I'm thinking that there has to be a sense that the more somebody has a sense of self, authentic self, the more possible it is to look at certain behaviors and patterns and say, okay, this is not really part of who I am. This is something I've picked up along the way. This is something I've been using for many years.
Yeah.
This is, but if I let go of this, I still have my authentic self. But if I don't have a clear sense of that authentic self, then how can I let go of this? Because this is,
It seems to be twofold. The things that actually, the people that do it earlier and that they do it from a sense of self, and everybody else does it, if they're going to do it, is based on a crisis, that they're feeling pain. A lot of people aren't feeling pain. A lot of people are like, their life isn't, they've figured out how to live a life of just being their reactive self, and whatever's in here is sacred, and that they're not, they seem happy. They're not certainly asking any questions.
Okay, they seem happy, but doesn't that ultimately become more and more numbing and more disconnected?
You would think, but they seem to be, they seem to like be, some people are genuinely happy just doing what they're doing, that they have as much happiness as that it hasn't come to a crisis. They don't have two things. They don't have a sense of self that things could be better that's driving them, and they don't have a crisis of things falling on their head to be able to make some kind of change. So that they're busy enough and they're doing something they enjoy enough, and they have friends and a social life and generally a primary partner that their life is more or less happy. And there's a percentage of people that do that, but most everybody else is that there's a crisis that brings them to this place, and sometimes that's later in life. If it's a crisis, I mean, the middle-aged crazy or whatever they call that. What do they call it?
Well, it's like a midlife crisis.
Midlife crisis.
Yeah.
When people, that's the time.
It's probably when the shadow overwhelms. There's just too much content there that has to be dealt with, and it comes as a sort of tidal wave.
It comes as a title. I think the real interesting part of that is I think that they have they've got a room full of stuff that's painful, and that I think it happens at around 50, 55, 45, somewhere in there, is because they look at their life on railroad tracks, and their mortality comes into it. They're like, oh my God, I only have so many years left to do this, and then that's what opens that door. Is like, they start realizing that this is their life. They don't actually have, forever. Because before that we feel like, we have forever. And we realize that we don't have forever, and that seems to be the thing that opens that door for many. And they start going, well, and then they start reverting back. I was happiest when I was in college. Most people, their happiest part of their life is college. Yeah, and they buy a red sports car, get somebody that's significantly younger than them. Maybe they go traveling. Maybe they pick up their art again and they start painting or something like that. And usually that who they used to be isn't there for them anymore. They actually have to, not in this moment of who am I now, and finding out.
That's drawing on something from the past which doesn't exist, and trying to create an illusion, trying to move into something which is. It's not something that's actually appropriate for them. And
I think it's worth looking at, is because the people that are seem to be happy with being reactive of whatever's in here is sacred, and the people that do have a crisis and then they try to go back somewhere and that's not there, and they kind of live some kind of hybrid of trying to be figuring out how to be happier in this part of their life, is that unless they come to a spiritual awakening where they actually look inside or force themselves to look and find self, that they're just making do. They just try to make the best of whatever they got. They want to have, they create opportunities for what's fun for themselves, and they virtually just kind of desensitize and de-emphasize the parts of life that they really don't like, and that's the most that they can actually have. So there's a group of people that do that. The ones that interest me are the people that actually seek self. They actually have to have some kind of experience of self. That crises or that sense of self drives them to, either start seeking self or have more embellish that experience of self. So I think there's categories. I think different people, and I think those categories are also, I think there's more people coming to self now, is my experience. But I've been saying that forever. But it does feel that way. So I think we're creating categories here. I've never really thought this out exactly like this, so I'm enjoying that. We come from very different ends of that scale, and I really liked the path that I took, because I really did make decisions. That there was many times that many adults were telling me that this is how you live life and this is what you need to do, and it just went. I was looking at their life. I was like, I was smart enough to go, I think I make better decisions than you do, from a very young age. So it never really dawned on me to actually go that way. And that you embraced the list of rules of things that you need to do, and had, your experience of life. And, I want to look at the positive side of that, is that because you are so in tune with what people's needs are, that you are actually able to do that in seconds. You can feel where somebody is, you can feel what their needs are, and you can actually validate them. People love, in a spiritual practice of actually having people feel validated and be able to connect with them in a way authentically. Now you have that opportunity not to do it to be accepted, but to actually have them feel accepted and relate to them in a way that makes sense to them, but also makes sense to you, is really an amazing gift. And one that, based on my trajectory, I have very much less of. I have gifts, but I don't have that one. I guess I'm a little envious of that one a little bit as well, because it's not something that I needed to survive. They do say that the thing that your greatest pain becomes your greatest gift.
So this is an interesting thing, because in a sense, the beauty of actually having a crisis or pain or the kind of experience we're talking about and getting to that point is that you have the opportunity to face that shadow or that major issue that you've sat with and worked with,
whatever that big fat fear is,
and get the essence of it. Because in the shadow, there's also the light shadow, the power, the qualities, the gifts,
the beingness, the thing that you really are gets stuck in the shadow with you and is unexpressed. So what about that?
Well, it's just what you were describing, is that the opportunity then to take those skills that have been honed over years detrimentally or used detrimentally to reinforce.
You acquired that skill out of things that were hurting you.
But then you can
still
take
a
that
skill,
and use it in a very different way afterwards, which becomes. Which, like you're saying, has the potential to be a gift.
It's a huge asset to you. It's absolutely, like, I'm just watching for you. I don't know if you consider it such, and I don't know if you see it as important, but I certainly do. I watch how you operate in the world, and I watch how you take care of people and validate them, and in a beautiful way. And it's really kind of a beautiful thing for people to feel any kind of acceptance whatsoever. And when it's authentic and comes from a good place, you can really do that in a powerful way that points them in a direction that's generally really good for them. So,
well, that's the difference, is that if I can cultivate it in a way that comes from an authentic, powerful place, and not to be not as I was using it before, which is really just based on an underlying fear and sense of trying to feel safe.
I think that's good for everybody, though. Is everybody knowing? Because I do like that saying. Is that what is your greatest pain, becomes your greatest gift, and knowing that nobody gets an easy way. You're in my experience of how we grew up with our relationship to our authenticity were very, very different, and that we both have very different gifts, and that no matter where you go and how difficult that was, when you come to authenticity, all of those things become very, very useful. So in the human condition, it's in spite of the fact we're our own unique snowflake of what what shapes us and what the criteria is that those things that hurt us then can be useful to almost everybody in some kind of way. So it's really a beautiful thing, actually. And that, just people knowing that, I think, is most people don't know that, and that they're judging, the decisions that they made and what happened to them, and not accepting their journey, And I think that's really powerful to be able to do that.
I think that's true. That a lot of people don't realize that that's where their strength is in their uniqueness and in their authenticity. I think most people, as I was, are striving to try and figure out what's the most acceptable, what's the, what'll get the most appraisal or acceptance. That that sense. I think
it fits into, like, just to pull up the analogy a little bit more as well, is that it's like in some really negative forms of what people, the decisions people have made and how their life has been shaped is like through addiction, for example, and like heroin addiction. The only people that can really counsel heroin addicts are ex-heroin addicts, because they've gone through that process and they know what the decision making is, and they know every one of those crossroads of what choices that they made when they were presented with many crossroads of doing something different in the face of hurting themselves and feeling pain and numbing themselves to that pain. And somewhere along the line, they actually made a different choice. And being able to, they're very, very useful with other people that are having that experience. In the same way, whatever has happened to you, like a lot of people, that's what I tell people, is whatever their pain is and whatever they've actually had to deal with, is that that's usually the thing that they can go and teach in transformation, the human development, and being conscious of self and getting to self, is whatever your pain was, is being able, if you had that experience, there's generally somebody else.
Right. So then what do you feel is your... So what do you feel it is that you can teach?
Mine is kind of the other way around, is because I did accept self, is that I've been able to, probably my greatest gift is where everybody else has to learn compassion in being able to accept their human condition. I did that very easily. As soon as I realized that I had a human condition, I didn't judge it. I didn't go, oh my God, I just judged myself. Oh, I did a little bit in the beginning. Actually, I did it a fair amount. But I could stick with it. It wasn't causing, because often, for me, the doorway to changing your life to a more conscious life is compassion.
Yeah, but it's interesting because you have that ability with people. You have the ability to understand.
Oh yeah, I'm very compassionate. I don't judge my own human condition, so why would I judge yours? It's stupid. Why would you do that? So that's what I can actually teach people, is that no, why were you judging yourself? Like, people are so quick to judge, it's so automatic, and then when they get on the transformational path and they go, oh, what I need to do is stop judging myself. It's all this automatic judgment central thing that's happening. And then they start, and then they go, okay, what I want to do is catch my judgments in the moment. And then the very next thing that they'll do is they'll catch a judgment. So they're starting to become conscious to look at the human condition. And then they know that they need to look at their judgments. And then the very first thing that they do is, oh my God, I judged myself again. Okay, let me get this straight. You're trying to catch judgments so you can stop them, and you missed a judgment, so what you did was judge yourself. So, and then they have to get used to, a hall of mirrors. So there's another mirror that comes in with that mirror. Okay, good. And that's probably the biggest trick about getting in the door of transformation and being really able to see what it is going on, is knowing that you judge yourself and that it's automatic. And then you're going to start judging yourself about your judgments and judging yourself that you didn't catch your judgments and what your intent is now. And that's a very tricky point in transformation. So one of my gifts is, just compassion. Is like, you didn't order this human condition. It's not under your design. It's like, you don't remember making these decisions. Yes, I believe that the ego, the negative ego, is just a messenger. And the messages it's bringing to you is, our ego is only as good as the tools that we give it. And the tools that we give it are our beliefs. So if I'm judging myself, now why into that?
No, because look, what you're speaking about is compassion, which you have compassion for yourself,
yes,
as part of the human condition. You have compassion for others as part of, in their human condition.
Yes.
So the thing is, it's part of it's part of the way you operate in the world.
It's true.
It's not something that you consciously apply as a practice, but it can be applied.
I do. No, I do.
You do.
Oh, nonstop. I'm constantly.
No, but I mean, is it consciously? Or is it just something that you do?
No, I'm conscious. No, I'm conscious about it.
Okay.
There's still judgments. I don't have to be so conscious about the compassion anymore, but I did have to be. What I was saying is that the ego. So what was that about a compassion? Is that we're only as good as the tools that our ego is only as good as the tools that we feed it. What we feed it is our beliefs. The tools are our beliefs, and that in our beliefs are all of these judgments that we have, and we made those decisions somewhere along the line. We just don't remember making those decisions. I didn't decide we're going to have a human condition. We're going to have an inner dialogue. What I'm going to do is constantly have my judgments, focused back to me in my beliefs, where I actually have to, then I create them in the world. If I don't deal with them internally, then I externalize them, and all my beliefs come back to me. So I actually, if you believe you create your life, then that's what you need to start dealing with, is what's not ideal or what's not working for you. We didn't design any of that. So the reason why you need to be compassionate is it's not your design that you remember. You're not in control of it. It's in control of you. So why would it's like judging yourself that it rained today. It really doesn't make any sense. You can't do that. So you actually have to release yourself completely from having a human condition and what it is and what those beliefs are. All of it. You cannot judge any of it. If you want to be useful in a world of transformation, you release yourself from that completely. And then you can start going, then you become a scientist. And you put your little scientist hat on, and you get out your microscope and your magnifying glass, and you start looking, what is the nature of this? You start realizing it's a mechanism. What is the nature of this thing? Most of it's patterns. All the stuff that's not working is a pattern and a mechanism. So that's the stuff. And if you're judging yourself for a mechanism that's not under your control, every time your clock radio goes off in the morning because it's set in a particular way, and you judge yourself because it goes off at 6 in the morning, doesn't make any sense. And that's what we're doing. So that's my gift. And one of my gifts is being able to actually release people from their human condition. You cannot judge any of that. It's silly. But and it's creating your life. So you have a thought system. And that thought system is creating your life. It's probably a really good idea if your life isn't 1,000,000% satisfying you and exactly the joy that you want to live in, and I do say joy, then it's probably a really good idea to look at what that mechanism is.
So you're talking about a practice.
I am talking about, absolutely.
A daily practice. And
yes.
Throughout the day.
Yes.
And if you had to, the essence of that practice is examining. I mean, how would you describe it?
It's a lot of different things. It could be a lot of different things, but I got it down to 3 things.
Okay.
So I'm only looking for 3 things. The first one is anything about the ego when you're being first, best, and right. If you're being superior or inferior, either one of those 2 things, that's what you want to look at. Our entire society is set up around winning. That's what you want to actually look at, is look at all the ways in life that you're winning, that all the ways that because we believe that everybody's out for themselves and everybody's, trying to scratch together what it is that they want. And that's, you're believing in lack is what it comes down to, is that, the only thing that's fighting for me is me. And that we're believing that we actually have to do these things, and that we're, do you like to be dominated? Do you like it when people, cleverly figure out how to take something that's yours, one down you, make you look bad? It's virtually, in a corporate sense, you can really see this part of the ego most readily in the corporates. Just to understand it, even if you're not a corporate, to understand it, it's very clear there. Or the schoolyard. People are digging holes under you and pretending like they're not, is what it comes down to, and that we think winning and being the best is, what's important, and it's not true, or that we're actually collecting evidence that we're not good enough. So that's the first one, is look at all the places that's happening in your life and be neutral, and actually start looking at people as peers and equals. And that then only at that time, because only at the time that we can actually see people as peers and equals, and we allow them, we don't judge them, we allow them to unfold as they are, and that I am unfolding as I am, is the only time that we'll have the safety and trust just to be the way we are.
Yeah, because that's not an ego position.
It's not an ego position.
If people are peers, if people are equals, then it's not an ego position.
What becomes, instead of winning, what becomes important is being. Is that I'm just going to be. We're not, because all that other stuff is putting your thumb on the scale of reality. You're fudging the margins in some kind of way, so you're not going, this is me naturally being like this, and that's you naturally being like that, being conscious about any patterns or karma, conditioned responses that we have. That's the best way. If we've all agreed, we want to get these conditioned responses out of our experience. So if we have that agreement, you and I, and maybe in a yogic philosophy kind of way, the yoga community is actually going, yeah, we want to actually interact with each other where we're not being first, best, and right, and we're not trying to be superior or inferior, so that we can just allow ourselves and others, encourage them just to be who they are. Then you can actually, for the first time, you can actually walk around in the world in safety and trust and be who you are, so you can get those reflections from everybody. That's the first one. It's first, best, and right. That's a gift that I give myself. I don't want to be first of all. Why would I want to be? It's useless. The second one is inference, is that I want to look at what I'm seeing in the world that's a pattern. So I'm constantly actually putting on the world what it is. I believe this about money. I believe this about men, women, South Africans. There's constant projection is perception. So, and what are you adding to the world? What are you seeing that's yours? Not what the world is that's your template that you're putting on the world. We see the world as we want to, because we've already predetermined how everything is. So being able to figure out what your patterns are. So constantly asking, you've got to test your thinking. When you said, did you mean? And that if you ask everybody that, especially in upsetting situations or fear-based situations or where there's anger or reactions, when you said this, what did you mean? Because all of us have had the experience of, we say something to somebody, we mean absolutely nothing by it. We say it. And they go, oh, how can you say that to me? And you go, say what to you? And they go, that. And I go, well, I know what I meant by that. What does that mean to you? And they go, oh, well, you're saying that I'm this kind of person. And there's a judgment embedded there somewhere. And I would go, personally, I'd go, well, no, that's not what I meant when I said that. That's not what I'm feeling. That's not what was going on for you. I'll tell you what it was. This is what I was thinking. This is what was going on. This is why I said it. And a common response is, no, it isn't. That's not what you're feeling. That's not why you did that. And they're not believing you that that's what you're doing. And those are the places, all of us have had that experience. So people are projecting things into the moment. They are. So here's the interesting place. Where are you? Where are you adding meaning to the moment? And that's the patterns that you're creating, and that there's a life that you're creating for yourself based on that. So that's the second one, is what are your inferences and learning? You have to test your thinking. Constantly asking the people around you about why they're doing what they're doing, and then comparing it to what you made up. It's a practice, constantly, especially when there's upset. And the third one is judgment. Judgment seals everything. So if we're being first, best, and right, or other people are being first, best, and right and superior, and we have the patterns that we're inferring meaning into the moment to describe other people's, usually what we do is we go, well, if I was in this situation and that's what I was saying, this is the reason why I'd be doing it. And that's not math you can actually apply. People are doing things for a lot of different reasons, and their reality is completely different, so you can't even guess that unless you ask. See, and another thing about the inferences are, if you're only interacting with your experience of somebody else's inner world, you're never going to completely understand their inner world, but you can understand the basics of it, about why they're doing what they're doing. If you're only interacting with your interpretations of somebody else's world, at the end of the day, you're only interacting with yourself. And that I would rather interact, I actually want to know what you're saying. I actually want to know who you are. I actually want to know what's going on in this moment and how you're unfolding, so I can unfold with it and that we can have that experience together. We're not doing that in life. And that in a yoga philosophy way, I propose that as a yoga communities that we actually start looking at this kind of relationship with one another. I think that's important. What else is there to do? Have imaginary friends and imaginary experiences, and be judging each other and ourselves because we enjoy it? I find that not that exciting. And then the third one is judgment, is that so we're judging people for being first, best, and right. We're judging them from a place of that we're superior. We're generally in our inferences, we're judging people, or that we have our judgments and we think we're right. We're righteous about our judgments and how things and people should be, which is a non-acceptance without all the information. So judgment seals all of that. Because of our judgments, we're not talking about there's something that's called the undiscussable, and that the undiscussable is even undiscussable in our society, especially corporately. People aren't talking about, oh, I think that you did this, and is that true? We don't do that. We don't go, oh, there's all this stuff that's undiscussable. There's these judgments that we have, and it affects how we work together. We're not doing that either. So, and it's the same pretty much anywhere in the world. We're very nicey in the yoga community, for example, and that everybody has their judgments, and there's the people that are right, and there's people that are righter. So that's the three things of the practice that I look at, is so that we can, start dealing with who we truly are and allow it. That's what it's going to take. Those social agreements is what it's going to take to actually is to be safe enough to be and trust people to be and have them be. And all that does, and having that intent, it's not just going to happen automatically, but you start cleaning your perceptions at that point, and you start cleaning your judgments, and you start cleaning your conditioning. From one another. How else are you going to do it? Nothing happens in a vacuum. You're not going to do it on your own. To a degree you can. Well, no, you had to have some stimulus somewhere along the way. But it just becomes that much more powerful and in the moment when you're doing it right here, right now, all the time.
Yeah, which makes it a practice that can be applied all day.
Yes. And that's virtually what Sankhya Yoga is. So that's my practice, and that's what I do. And there's a lot of tools for that. There's a lot of really amazing things to be able to do with that.